Good afternoon. My name is David Grindle. I'm the Executive Director for US ITT, and we are very pleased to be the segment sponsor for Experience as a way to show our commitment to partnering with TEA as a partner association. I'm pleased to introduce Michael Blau of Adirondack Studio, Vice President for Business Development, Traci Klainer, the Executive Director of Luce, and Chris Conte, Vice President for Business Development of Electrosonic. And I hope you will join us all in March for the US ITT conference after a lovely time here. Thank you.
Are we sitting?
Yeah, we're going to sit.
Oh, we're going to sit.
Hello, everybody. Now we get to yak a little bit.
Yeah. Are you going to be like the leader of the blind mice?
Sure.
Okay.
Officially called the blind mice.
Yeah, the three blind mice. That's who you're looking at right now.
So we're going to just have a quick discussion. We thought of a couple questions that I think the three of us are interested in answering. We thought through all the presentations past couple days, but we also want to include you. So when you see the questions, think about how it affected you during the last 2 days, kind of things that stirred your attention, and takeaways you're going to walk away with this conference from. So.
Yeah, if I can jump in. We really thought about this conference as S plus A plus T equals E. And this is the moment where we want the equals E to come out and see what you think.
Sure. So what have we learned? What are the connections between speaker and topics that connects storytelling and architecture and technology? And how does it equal experience? So go Traci.
Yeah, so we were talking about this at lunch, and I just picked one of the speakers, and I said it was Manon, and I said the reason I thought it was is because she starts with architecture that, that's already existing, and she embraces it and brings a story into that architecture, and she either has technology and works with it, or they bring it in, or they have none, and how do they work with that? And she creates a story with all of these, with the architecture and the technology, and creates a full experience for us. So for me, I said, that was one of the ways I really thought it all connected with the speakers. And then we got into this conversation of...
about variables, right? Mike West started the conversation with, here are all the things that go into a story. But all of those things that go into it, the variables, they influence the final experience. And my observation from the speakers that we've had is that everyone spoke about experience. Everyone did. I think if I wrote down the number of times that someone in technology said story, and somebody in architecture said story, and someone in story said architecture, there would be thousands of times, and they all led back to experience. So I think you could pick any speaker that we had and tie them together and say, oh, they talked about the final experience. And really for me, the final experience is about what the guest gets, what the visitor gets. And the focus of, you're going to make it the best that you can, using the tools that you have at your belt, making sure that everything you do is to make the best experience. And if I can, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I started the conference saying, you're in the middle of the tightrope, and you have a choice to move forward, you have a choice to move back, you have a choice to fall. And at lunch today, it dawned on me, well, you don't have a choice. If you're going to go out on the tightrope, you go forward.
You're committed.
You're committed to make the experience. You're not going to go back, because if you go back, you fail. You're not going to fall, because if you fall, you fail. So the moment you step out on the tightrope, you're going to create the best experience that you can.
Yeah, one of the things that we did early on is we asked the segment chairs to think about, or ask the question of their speakers, if you're going to take a risk, do you create a backup plan? Do you have a plan B just in case that risk doesn't come or it fails? And at the end of the day, by the time you get to the middle of the tightrope, you're committed. You're committed to space, you're committed to equipment, and certainly on my end, and you're committed to the concept. And what was interesting listening to some of the speakers is that there was a level of improv when they had to solve the problem. Probably answers they couldn't have thought of at the beginning of the process. I call it the MacGyver approach. And maybe the Gen Zs don't even know who MacGyver is, but it, you know, you really have to take the situation at the time and come up with the appropriate solution if you run into a problem. So I think creating a plan B may be great in principle, but at the end of the day, you have to have, you know, artistic troubleshooting skills to create the solution right there and then.
And I think that it was really important to us when we talked to the segment chairs, that everything we found all overlapped. Like, it was kind of hard to say, well, this is storytelling and this is technology and whatever, you know. So I hope you saw that too, that the segment chairs really came together. And we all saw, you know, Deanna brought a storyteller and Paul brought somebody from technology and Chris brought, you know, so, and we realized that that's why the experience works here, because they all are talking about the same thing with a specific focus.
Yeah, that's right.
I can tell you that I'm overwhelmed. There's so much that I got from the past 2 days, and we have 2 more, which are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm overwhelmed, but I'm interested to hear from you, the audience, as to what really struck you as to the experience.
Yeah, anybody out there want to comment on what they've heard the past 2 days? Here's one right here to the left. Let's get a microphone up the stairs. Let's open this up. Clara.
Oh, mic's not on. Ooh.
Great job, guys. I'm really impressed with everything you put together in the last 2 days.
Thank you.
One of the things that's really stood out for me is the notion of community and inclusion. We're not creating experiences for a select few. Molly talked about experiences for people who are sick. Manon talked about underserved communities. Catherine talked about those with disabilities and physical challenges. So that's really what stood out for me. And Darren talked about, you know, VR is great, but creating immersive spaces creates more community and interaction. So that's really what has stood out for me is creating a space that is welcoming for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there was
excellent
one
point.
comment here that I just love. One in particular, they said, "Don't create a star, create a constellation of stars." Thought that was very powerful and magical on some level. Anybody else? Comment? Anybody like to hear themselves talk?
We're going to
David-
give you
David,
another
where are you?
question. So you know, you got a chance now. We're giving you another one.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
What lessons of risk will you use as a takeaway next time you face risk? So, what have you learned personally? I know for me personally that I heard a lot of people talk about preparing and facing risk, and you can try to anticipate the problems that come across, but at the end of the day, I find that the solutions you come up with are probably more dynamic and more appropriate and probably better than the original idea. And that just comes with, you know, the experience of having the right team on place who can bring creative ideas for troubleshooting. You know, the ideas are great from concept to reality, but really when it comes down to it, troubleshooting is an art form. And finding the right solution at the time and you're under pressure sometimes have a better result than you ever imagined. I mean, I'll give you one example. It's kind of interesting. We did one of the first digital transitions from film for Universal for Simpsons. And we planned it like crazy. It's a big dome. And we had to put a lot of light in that dome. And at the end of the day, we turned on all the projectors and it wasn't bright enough. And we were in trouble. And we were 30 days out. And that pressure point forced our engineers to really think out of the box, go back to the drawing board, and come up with a very unique dynamic solution that nailed it, which was actually a better idea than we thought of at the beginning of the job. So it was really the pressure that really pushed us in new directions to think out of the box. You know, not everything works. Thank God Universal is somebody that embraces risk, and they supported us. But, you know, we were sweating bullets there 30 days out from opening, and we came up with the right solution.
Can I expand on that?
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No?
Okay. Really? You sure? Okay.
Well,
This is what it was like.
this is what our
all the
calls
time.
were like,
Okay.
by the way.
That tension is the cool spot, right?
Right.
You're right about to get to the end, and you have to make it work. And you test your mettle to see if you're going to make that last step across. And that's the cool part of the project. That's also the cool part for the audience. That's the cool part for everything, right? It's that standard story arc where it's at that climactic moment. Are they going to make it or not? That's where the experience comes from.
It puts you on your game.
Either you're going to make it or you're not.
Yeah.
And people love to have that experience. And as a creator, I love that experience. I love that moment of, am I going to make it or not?
So I have two things from you first, and then I want to actually jump to what Claire said, is that, if you're a theater person, when you're watching a show, if someone's taking a risk and it's a risk that's planned, you're still right with them and you're excited by it. But if they drop a prop or something and they don't pick it up and I just makes me so tense, and I watch and I'm like, oh, somebody's going to fall on it or whatever. Our job when we create things is to take those risks and have people come with us and take those risks, but those risks that are planned and we bring them with us into that story, and that's what excites me.
Yeah.
But for what Claire said about what risk, the question about risk is community. What I've really realized hearing everybody speak today, and through TEA specifically, and the teams I work with, is you're not alone in taking risks. It is about a community. So we're creating an experience for a community, but we're sitting in a room with people that are taking risks with us. So why not jump onto the tightrope? Why not go to the middle? You know someone's going to be there at the end cheering for you, or they're going to come out right behind you and keep pushing you. And that's what I got a lot out of the risk-taking and what people talked about, because sometimes you're scared because you're going to be the one that gets the finger pointed at you, or you're going to be the one that's going to be left alone. But we have all these people around us who are excited to take risks and want to make great work, and that excites me and makes me feel like we really address that issue, and we shouldn't be scared of it.
Absolutely. And you have to have a full team of support. From the, I say the fish stinks from the head down, but in truth, if you don't have support for taking risks from the top down, you'll never achieve success. So let's open this up. What are your personal takeaways that you got out of some of the conferences? What was said that might inspire you to make changes of how you approach risk or projects in the future? Anybody want to speak?
And I know so many of you take
Here.
risks.
Boy, for a crowd that talks a lot, you're awfully shy.
I know. We know people
I
out there.
know
We're going to
you
start
all.
pointing.
Come
I'm up here.
on.
Okay.
Hi. I just wanted to make a note from a next-gen point of view when it comes to risk. I mean, I've been in the workforce for a little over a year now, post-graduation, but it's really interesting hearing everybody talk about risk in a way, as someone who's just come out of school. In school you have risk, but it's a different kind of risk. It's a learning risk. And I mean, in the workforce, you're still learning from your mistakes, but it can be more disastrous, depending
Don't have
on the
the same
risk.
safety net.
Exactly.
Right.
So I always take away the same kind of quote from our fantastic lighting designer teacher at SCAD. She always says, if there's no opportunity to fail, then there's no opportunity to learn. And I've begun to carry that with me into the industry because, even in work, you have to be okay with making mistakes. And it's scary when you're someone who's like me and is a perfectionist. And you always want to have the right answer or make the right choice. But over the past year, when I do make mistakes or I trip and I fall, it's only an opportunity to learn how to be better.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm taking away from hearing about all these kinds of risks. There's good things that come from it, and there's bad things that come from it, but it's always worth jumping on the tightrope.
Don't be afraid.
Yep. You've got a safety net.
My whole career has been about, I say I don't really know what to do. Man, I know what not to do again. And that is the truth. And I learned that from my mentor up there, Mark Thomas. We've taken some tremendous risks and we've made some spectacular failures in the past, but we've learned some great lessons. And saying that you know what to do means you're not willing to take some risks on some level. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Right here. Mr. Thomas. Right there.
Or is he talking? Hello? Yeah, hi.
What's your name, friend?
Jim Humans with Humans Designs.
Right.
I'm a set designer, and I can attest to the fact that I've had quite a few failures, and as well as successes. And
Good.
among the themes I heard was that failure is not only an option, but it's part of the process. And I've, as you said, learned a lot more and remember a lot more from experiences that were initially failures. And that seemed to be a theme that passed through many of the presentations, how that first pass or that first attempt didn't quite work or was a total failure, but it led to innovations and changes and learning that further on created or led to success. And for me, it's, I'll say, often it is about stepping past the fear of failure that keeps me going forward. Thanks.
Yeah. Deanna said fearless thinking,
Yes.
and that's exactly what you're talking about. Mark, you have a comment?
Oh, it works. I guess you have to tap it to make it run. I was thinking about, we've been using the word risk, and personally, risk has a very sort of clinical insurance kind of feel to it, right? You know, it's an actuarial table, and then there's an assessment of risk and all those things, but it really comes down to fear. And it was just mentioned, so I think that was it's a powerful segue for me. You know, I do or don't do things professionally or personally because of my fear, not because I've assessed the risk and I've assigned a percentage of it. And fear is often not very rational. And, you know, sometimes it is. Sometimes, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, right? And I've taken all of this, looking at like the great presentation on human factors and all those kinds of things, and I realize some of that I have to go back and look at my own career and my decisions as a business owner, my decisions as a professional, as an artist, and try to sort of look at what decisions am I making and trying to sort of scientifically adjust my fear, as opposed to just acting with courage and instinct.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. There's not like a good alchemy for that. You can't just add 5% of this and 20% of that and get a result that really works. You have to kind of live on instinct. And I think that's where to tie everything else together, I agree with these comments about community. It's like a lot of times in our fear about risk, whatever, you know, if we can have a dialogue with other professionals, it can really help. So
Yeah, it's not as clinical. Yeah. There we go. Trent,
No, there's
there's another one over here.
too.
Yeah, we've got two. Let's take two more. And get you, Trent.
And then there's one or two there, yeah.
Okay.
Who's next? Me? Oh, all right. I really enjoyed the fact that Cirque du Soleil and MTV talked a lot about reinvention. And I'm with Walt Disney Imagineering. And it's just really exciting to think about how can we create these startup mentalities within our large behemoth organizations. It's something that we always struggle with. So I thought it was remarkable to see the things that they'd done. And I think our group is really inspired to go back and push our line of business folks and push our executives and to just really think differently, you know, so we can stay relevant for a really long time.
Look at that. We inspired Disney.
Well, I've only been there 3 years.
Yeah, you qualify.
Yeah, I was going to say, we inspired Disney. Check.
All right. Trent, you put your hand up? Far?
Oh, yeah. Oh, over there.
Or just throw it.
Yeah.
Hi. Wow. One of just my overall thinking about TEA overall for a while now has been so many of us started in theater. And part of that risk taking is if you start in theater, you are putting on a live show and you know there will be mistakes. You know, if you start in other professions, you're like, well, no, perfection is the only possibility. But with theater, we know there will be problems, there will be mistakes. You plan on it. So you almost work that terror into everything you do.
Sure.
And since you're doing that, when you hit a wall and you get stuck, you also you reach out to anybody you think could help you. You don't say, oh, no, I'm just going to sit alone in a room and figure it out all by myself. You immediately call anybody that you know who understands the terror you're in and ask advice. And this is the big part of what I see here, that in TEA is kind of the exploring all sorts of different areas, but let's all pick each other's brain, because we can't figure it out all by ourselves. The terror is inevitable. There will be mistakes, there will be problems, and that's where great art and great experiences come from.
Yeah, no doubt.
Happy accidents.
No doubt.
Happy accidents.
Yeah,
What I learned from theater. Happy accidents.
Improvise quickly.
Yep. And you've got to make it happen because you've got an 8 o'clock show.
Yes, and the
Where
show,
a project can be a year behind in a building, but you have an 8 o'clock show.
Right.
99% of the time, there is an 8 o'clock show because the producer isn't going to let it go.
Right.
the most
So-
magnificent part I get from theater people is the show's continuing, there's a problem, we will find a way around it, we'll discuss it later in a way that says, how could we fix this, instead of, you're bad, you did something horrible. It's like, no, we know this will happen. How do we move forward?
That's why we drink.
All right, that's it. We're out of time, folks.
Sorry. And that's where we're leaving it. TEA, that's why we drink.
All right,
We're on break now.